Welcome everyone to day 10. Great job guys for following so far. All right, in today's video we're going to be integrating most of what we've learned again from day 1 up to day 9, and we're going to try to also add some concept as well as we go along. All right, so let's dive into this use case. It's a very interesting use case that you guys need to really pay attention to. Okay, so finance needs Q1 2024 revenue data segmented by product, subcategory, category, and customer to analyze profitability trends and refine discount strategies. Note, revenue is calculated as order quantity by unit price. Let's take note of that. Your task is to prepare a Q1 revenue roll up with product or category granularity. Guys, this is a very real life situation. I just want to mention to you, in your own work, it might not be very explicit, just like as you're saying it in some of these use cases. But one thing I want you to take note is that feel free to clarify your requirement. Very key, right? Clarify your requirement. Make sure you're on the same page with the business as well, and make sure you understand exactly what the business is looking for. Then you can go ahead and then design your data product. All right, now let's go back to our templates. What are the tables we'll need here? Okay, so looking at this dimension, we're going to have to uh, consider product, subcategory, category, and customer. And that tells us we need a customer information and we need to go through that product hierarchy. All right, and in terms of the metrics we need the total revenue. That's the only metric we need there, but it needs to be calculated by order quantity by unit price. Okay, and you can see a sample of data here. Like I used to mention in our sessions, feel free to stop the recording, try on your own, see what you come up with, and then come back to this video and see our explanation. All right, so let's go ahead and solve this problem. Now, before we go ahead and solution this use case, let's first of all take a look at our data model and see what tables and how we need to join our tables. Right now, from our previous sessions, you should be used to all of this table, including this, and the metric we need here still exists in this table, the sales order detail. However, one thing that we need to factor in here is that we also need the customer information, so which is going to be the person's email address. We need the customer information. So essentially, this is where we're going to start with, and we're going to try to pull all the required attributes from all of these tables here, and then we're going to then have to go through this guy and get through this guy as well to pull our email address and customer information, right? So you can see this is how we have to deal with this particular solution. So in a way, we are going to be dealing with about 7 tables altogether: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7. All right, so as you can see, this is a very interesting use case. All right, now that we understand what we need, let's quickly go to our lab. Okay, let's quickly go to our lab. Okay, so let's start with the where we actually have the metric, because that is the measures that we actually need for this particular deliverable. All right, so let's say we want to just quickly um, check that table. I know we've checked that table before, but we're going to reference it again, and I think I still have it right here, so I'm just going to reference this guy from our last session, and then we run that. Okay, we should be able to see some data. Oh, data output. So no data output. Okay, beautiful. Okay, all right, so now we have our data output from this sales order detail. Now let's quickly look at what we need here. So we do know that the total revenue, okay, so we're just gonna push the ones that we need. So we do know that we need the order quantity. Okay, we also need the um, let's we also need the unit price here. Okay, it's not the unit price discount, guys, don't confuse it. The order quantity, the unit price. Okay, and then we then need the multiplication of both of them. So we're gonna say order quantity, okay, multiply by unit price, and then we're gonna call that revenue. All right, let's run that and just validate. You can see once you multiply this, we have this value. Everything is looking really good. Okay, if you multiply 6 by 5.7, we have 34.2. That looks right. All right, so everything looks good. This is what we want. Actually, we don't need these other two attributes, so we're just gonna comment them out. We actually just need the revenue. Okay, but we just need to be able to see the revenue and make sure and validate to make sure it's working as expected. All right, now let's go ahead and then pull up all the other attributes that we need to be able to put some context to this matrix. Okay, the first one is, let's pull the other details. Okay, sorry, the product I meant to say. So let's pull the product here. Okay, we're gonna have to pull in the product itself, but before that, actually, we also need to filter by Q1 2024. So how do we do that? So we say a where clause, and then we do extra. We've done this before, so I'm just going to go ahead and from and then put in what is required here. So we use the order date. Where do we have the order date here? Okay, so this is going to be interesting. We actually have the order date in the sales order header. Okay, so we need to pull the sales order header for us to be able to reference the order date, because we want to use the order date to be able to pull the sales that we had during this period of Q1 2024. Okay, so let's quickly do a left join, left outer join to sales order header. Okay, and let's call these product sold, PS. Okay, product sold, and let's call this sales. Okay, and then let's join on we're gonna join on sales order ID. Sorry, sales order ID. We call this PS dot, and then we pull another one, and we'll say sales order ID, and we'll say S. Okay, dot, and then we can then pull this order date from here. Okay, so we pull the order date equals to 2024. All right, and then we also put the month as well. Okay, and we put the month, and we'll say less than or equals to 3, meaning that January to March. And then let's run that. Let's pull our, actually we're gonna also reference this here. Okay, so let's add these guys here, and we're just gonna remove the where, and then we're gonna remove the and as well, space it, beautiful. And then, and because we're already aggregating, and then we have some dimension attribute there, so we're just gonna add group by, and then we're just gonna say 1, 2 at this point, and I think it should work. Let's see. All right, so we need to add some here. Okay, all right, so let's run that. Oh, we need to call this year, and also then call this month. Okay, and let's run that. It should work now. Beautiful. You can see it's aggregating at the level of year and month, and we can see what the total look like. Okay, this is great. And then from here, we're then gonna pull our product ID. Okay, we're gonna pull our product ID. So in this case, we can just pull the, so we're gonna just connect to product. So let's connect to product. I think we did some connection before to product itself. You know what, we're gonna do it again. So we're gonna do left outer join, and then we're just gonna do product itself. So we call product as P. Okay, so we do product as P, and then we just do on product ID. In this case, we're gonna join with other detail. Okay, so we're gonna say ps dot product, ID equals to p dot product ID as well, and then we can then pull the p dot product ID. All right, and at that point, because this is also a dimension attribute, we will have to put 3 here. Okay, and then we run all of that. Okay, so you can see it's looking great. Okay, so it's looking really great. However, we just need to pull in the product name as well. Okay, so let's pull in the product name here. P dot product name. Okay, because with the ID we may not be able to tell the name, and because we added product name here, what we then need to do is that because now it's 4, we then need to increase this to 4 dimension attribute. There is no product name. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to just be name. Name. Okay, you know what, we just say name as product name, and then we run that, so we can see it's coming as expected. This is great. And then we then need to pull in the subcategory as well as the category itself. Let's quickly do that. So we're gonna do subcategory first. If we go through the, and one thing I want you guys to always go back to is here you can see, first of all, we connect to the sales order header. We pull in the order dates, right? It was in this table, and then we did another connection from this table back to product, and we were able to pull the product name and the product ID. Now we need to go back to subcategory and category. Guys, you need to pay attention to how the architecture of this data model and how you need to connect two tables together. Okay, so let's go back to our lab, and at this point we just need to, okay, let's connect back to subcategory here. So let's go back to the production, and then we have the product. We just need a subcategory in this case. So we're going to look for the PK here. The PK is going to be subcategory. First of all, we need to pull the subcategory. So let me do that. I'm going to pull in the subcategory here, and we call this sub like we did before. And then for the key here, we're just going to pull in the product subcategory ID here. All right. And then we'll switch this to sub. Okay, and then we just leave this one as P, and then we call it product subcategory as well. Okay, and then at that point we can then pull in the subcategory name. We call it sub dot name, and then we alias it as product subcategory. Okay, let's do that. We call it product subcategory. All right, and then we also need to increase to 5 at this point because we added another column. Let's run that. um Okay, so there is something going on here. We have sub here, and then product. We have P dot pro. Oh, sorry, it's supposed to be subcategory here. I pulled the wrong one, so let's run it. Beautiful, guys. So it's working quite well now, and we're gonna do the same thing for category itself. All right. Just follow me closely, and if you have confusion, go back to the data model. You'll see how I'm connecting these tables together. All right. So now we need to connect to product category. Let's pull in the product category here, and we call it cat. And then here we just say it's gonna be product category key. So we just remove this sub, and we call this cat. And then here we just change this as well to, and here we change the name here to reference sub. Okay, and at that point we can just copy this guy and add a new one, and then we call this one cat because we know the name of the column itself. We can see its name here, and then we'll call this product category. Okay, and then we will, before we run that, we need to switch this to 6, and then we can then just run it. We can see it's working quite well. All right, and then the next one we need to do here is that we then need to pull the customer information. So we can pull the customer information from the customer itself, because we really need to, if you go back to our data model here, we need to go through these customer. We already referenced the sales order header, but we need to go through the customer to get to this person. So let's first of all pull the customer ID from this table, and then we'll pull the email address from this table. All right, so let's quickly go back. Okay, so just give me 1 second here. Uh, and so let's go back to our lab. Okay, and let's just pull in the customer ID. Okay, so for that we just do another left outer join. I'm just going to copy that right here, and then we're going to reference customer. Okay, and that's under production. Okay, so no, actually, it's on the, let's see, it's on the sales. So we pull it from sales and we call this customer. And then we know the connection between customer and sales order detail is customer ID. So we're going to say on. And then we can say, where's our customer order? Okay, so it's S dot customer ID. So let's quickly do that. All right, let's pull in the customer ID here, equals 2, and then we'll then put the cost dot customer ID as well, right? And then we can just pull this here, right here. As this one, we don't need to rename it. Customer ID is appropriate. We just only need to add that we've add a new column here as well as 7, and then let's run that. Beautiful. You can see the customer ID is coming as expected. And then the last one is to pull in the email address. If we go back to, if we come back here, you see we have the customer ID, and then we have the email address. So let's quickly pull the email address here. All right, so let's copy this. You know what, let's just copy the left. Actually, I think we copied the last time. Okay, no. Okay, let's just copy the left outer join. All right, and then we do person. Okay, so person dot person. Okay, and then here we would have to, we can leave it, we don't need to, you know what, we can actually call it per, and then we'll say cost dot person ID equals to per, dot person ID, and at that point we give us access to this person table, and then we can then pull in the per dot email address. and we don't need to alias it, so we just say um, okay, so we just add one more here and call it 8, right? And then we'll just run that. Beautiful, guys. Now, the last but not the least here is that we want to be able to see the highest revenue based on customer ID, okay? And so what we're gonna do is that we're just gonna say order by, and then we're gonna just reference this customer ID here, and we'll say let this be in ascending order, okay? And then also we'll then reference the revenue itself. We can just reference revenue in descending order. All right, and then let's run that. So beautiful, guys. So if you look here, we can see now you begin to see that, if you look at, so you only see this really when you're looking at duplicate. If you ever had duplicate, you'll be able to look at the customer ID level, what is the highest sales, right? And that is really why we had to order it this way. I know this is a lot of joins that we had to do here, but I just want you guys to see, some of the reason why we've gone through all that we've done so far. So now you see in this particular session, you begin to use your fact table versus dimension table. You begin to use the concept of cardinality, one to many, one to one, and also you're able to leverage foreign key versus primary key, and so many other stuff that we did within this particular session. I hope you've learned it a lot. And at this point, this would end our beginner module, and then we'll just go to our intermediate after this particular session. If you find all of this very helpful to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. This helps us to get more content out, and also get people to be able to see and benefit from these our sessions. Thank you so much for following us thus far, and I will see you in the next module of the intermediate.